It's a necklace. Alan's picked it up.
Thanks.
Show me the love.
When I say there are plenty of new movies that could happen after the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 2, I mean it. It's been over a decade since the saga wrapped up, but what potential projects could follow the final film? Stick around and we'll fill you in. But before that, here's some exciting news about Netflix's upcoming reboot of the series. They're switching things up by going animated. Months after announcing the series would be animated, the latest update confirms it'll adapt Midnight Sun, Stephenie Meyer's 2020 novel that retells the Twilight story from Edward Cullen's perspective. So, here's everything we know about what's happening in the Twilight Saga universe. The Twilight Saga was a cultural phenomenon when it first hit theaters, with all 5 films becoming massive box office hits. Despite its success, critics were never on board, often labeling the series as melodramatic, overly serious, and even downright silly. The first Twilight movie fared slightly better in reviews thanks to Catherine Hardwicke's decision to include a murder mystery subplot. However, sequels like New Moon struggled to win over critics, though Eclipse, directed by David Slade, was seen as a step up. By the time Breaking Dawn wrapped up the series, it was clear the franchise had lost its initial spark, with its core audience beginning to move on. Despite this, the release of Stephenie Meyer's books Life and Death in 2015 and Midnight Sun in 2020 proved that there's still interest in the Twilight universe. With Midnight Sun retelling the original Twilight story from Edward Cullen's perspective, it sold a staggering 1 million copies in its first week. However, adapting it into a live-action movie poses challenges. Robert Pattinson, now iconic as Edward, is busy playing Batman, and recasting him would be no small task. Add to that the fact that much of the original cast has aged out of their roles, and a live-action adaptation seems unlikely. Critics of Midnight Sun also noted that it didn't add much new to the original story, making a movie adaptation feel unnecessary. That said, Netflix is breathing new life into the saga with an animated adaptation of Midnight Sun. Lionsgate TV has been shopping the project for 2 years, and now Netflix has given the series a straight-to-series order. The adaptation is being written and produced by Sinead Daly Tell Me Lies, The Walking Dead alongside Stephenie Meyer, and a team of producers including Megan Hibbett, Wick Godfrey, and Marty Bowen. While there's no confirmed timeline for the show's release, it's clear this animated take on Twilight offers a fresh opportunity to revisit the saga. The decision to adapt Midnight Sun means the new series will retell the story of the first book through Edward Cullen's eyes, adding depth to his character and giving fans more insight into his backstory. Although the novel was met with mixed reviews, this adaptation could address some of the missed opportunities and controversial elements of the original series. With Netflix on board, this could be the second chance Twilight fans and critics have been waiting for. While a live-action adaptation of Midnight Sun seems unlikely, there's another option on the table that could take the form of a spin-off, Life and Death. This retelling of Twilight swaps the genders of the main characters and earned better reviews than much of Stephenie Meyer's other work, including the original Twilight. Written in response to criticisms about Bella's flat characterization, Life and Death offers a fresh take that makes it a strong candidate for a movie adaptation. However, while Life and Death does reimagine the story, it doesn't stray too far from the original plot. The familiar events may make a film adaptation feel redundant for fans who already know the Twilight narrative. That said, with gender-swapped reimaginings of popular franchises trending in Hollywood, this approach could still be a smart move for producers. If a new Twilight movie happens, Life and Death seems like the most likely choice for a live-action spin-off. One of the most common ways fans envision a sequel to Breaking Dawn Part 2 is by expanding on Renesmee and Jacob's storyline. This seems like a natural direction, given that Renesmee's birth was a central plot point in Breaking Dawn. As one of the few human-vampire hybrids in the Twilight universe, her unique existence offers a wealth of storytelling opportunities. Jacob Black's complex history with Bella and Edward adds further intrigue. Once the third wheel in their love triangle, Jacob imprints on Renesmee, forging a bond that unites the Cullens and werewolves. However, as imprinting varies among wolves and both characters are immortal, their future relationship remains ambiguous. Would their bond evolve into romance as Renesmee matures, or would the weight of Jacob's past with Bella create an obstacle they can't overcome? These questions make Renesmee a compelling choice to narrate a sequel or even an entire series of follow-ups. Another intriguing character who deserves the spotlight is Leah Clearwater, the only female shapeshifter in Quileute history. Leah's journey is marked by heartbreak, trust issues, and a protective nature toward her brother Seth. Through Bella and Jacob's biased perspectives, we only glimpse Leah's depth, but Julia Jones's nuanced portrayal in the films brought her struggles and resilience to life. Exploring Leah's future, her role as a female werewolf, and the potential for her to find someone to imprint on could offer a rich narrative that delves deeper into the mythology of the Twilight universe. Finally, there's plenty of potential in revisiting the Cullens' backstories. Characters like Rosalie, Alice, Esme, and Carlisle have fascinating and often tragic histories that were only briefly touched on in the books and films. The Twilight Storytellers short film series explored some of these narratives, but a full-length book or film could provide greater insight into the vampire family's origins and struggles. For instance, Alice's mysterious connection to James, Esme's tragic loss as a human, or Carlisle's early years as a vampire would all make for compelling standalone stories. Whether through Renesmee, Leah, or the Cullens' pasts, the Twilight universe has plenty of untapped potential to explore in future projects. All this aside, not many people know that the Twilight Saga was not always planned as a 4-book series. Stephenie Meyer initially envisioned a direct sequel to Twilight titled Forever Dawn, which would have concluded the saga in just 2 books. In this alternate story, Bella marries Edward after high school, becomes pregnant with Renesmee, and nearly dies during childbirth before Edward turns her into a vampire. The Volturi are still drawn into conflict due to Renesmee's existence, but major events from New Moon and Eclipse are absent, significantly reducing Jacob Black's role. If Forever Dawn had been published, the Twilight Saga might have been limited to just 2 movie adaptations. While this streamlined approach could have improved the narrative flow, it would have reshaped cinema in the 2010s. Without the financial success of multiple Twilight sequels, studios might have hesitated to adapt other young adult series like The Hunger Games and Divergent. Similarly, Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson might not have achieved the same level of stardom without the extended spotlight the series provided. Narratively, skipping New Moon and Eclipse would have simplified the saga, but at a cost. New Moon establishes Jacob as a romantic foil to Edward and builds the emotional depth of Bella's character during Edward's absence. Without this, Jacob's controversial imprinting on Renesmee in Forever Dawn becomes even harder to justify. The storyline, already polarizing in the original saga, would lack the romantic history between Jacob and Bella that gave it at least some context. Meanwhile, cutting Eclipse would have removed one of the saga's strongest entries. The novel delves into the love triangle between Bella, Edward, and Jacob, while David Slade's film adaptation added darker tones and dynamic action sequences. These elements not only elevated the storytelling, but also fueled the Team Edward and Team Jacob fan divide, a cultural phenomenon that drove the franchise's popularity. At the end, Meyer decided against publishing Forever Dawn, feeling its mature themes wouldn't appeal to her young adult audience. By the time Breaking Dawn was split into 2 films, adapting Forever Dawn would have been redundant. While this alternate version offers an intriguing what if, it would likely have lacked the character development and cultural impact of the full Twilight Saga, which became a defining phenomenon of its time. All of this is well said, and that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you don't mind, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the like button to stay in the loop for everything happening in the world of movies, from the latest news to the next big Hollywood project they might try to ruin. That's that, and we'll see you in the next one.